Las Vegas. Look a lot warmer places than where we are.
Well, welcome everyone to our program today. This is hosted by ISM New Jersey, and I'm Kathy Perney, Executive Director, and I will be the behind the scenes person here. So if you have any questions, technology questions, just put it in the chat for me. We would like to say hello to all of our ISM members, our chapter partners, and our guests to our program today. Please be sure to place your comments or questions in the chat function, as we would like to make this an interactive event. We're also going to have polls today, so please be aware of that, because we really need your participation in that as well. And today's topic, very, very important, is marketing procurement, category spotlight. I am pleased to welcome back Graham Crawshaw, who is the Procurement Content Director for CASME, who is joining us from the UK. Graham has the overall responsibility for the quality of CASME's roundtable and virtual events program. Prior to joining CASME, Graham spent 20 years working in procurement for the music industry within an operational and marketing environment, so he definitely can talk on both ends. At EMI, Graham regularly supported major artists, including the Beatles, Queen, Pink Floyd, in developing and sourcing their unique packaging requirements, and subsequently worked on the company's first music streaming contract. Graham is also a fellow of SIPS. At this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Graham.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. And every time you give that introduction, I think, hang on, that sounds even more interesting than what you've asked me to talk about. But hey, we'll cover that at one point. But delighted to be here today to share some updates on marketing procurement. And I just realized not sharing the right screen. I should have set that off before we started. Good. Hopefully you can now see the screen. So you know all about me now. Delighted to be back, and in fact you've got me in about a month's time, so great to have everyone come and join the presentation. What we're going to do in this next hour is mainly talk about marketing procurement and share with you some of the findings, some of the work that we've done at CASME, and really give you the insight from a practitioner's point of view. And it's a complex category. Those that are involved with it will say it is the most complex category. It's different. I'm not sure if it's most complex, but that's a debate for another day. Plan for now, I'm going to give you just a brief summary about CASME, just to set the scene, tell you where the information has come from, and then go through marketing procurement all the way through and finalize with some future trends. We've got the Q&A, we've got a couple of polls. Please respond, put some questions in. I'll do my best to answer them. I think that's the plan. CASME, we're all about different events and networking, and we do over 200 a year. And it's from those conversations with procurement professionals that we're able to produce different insights, different documents, and we support that with benchmarking. So we've got an awful lot of material that all comes together. We're global, so picking up on the maturity of procurement, and that's important because it does vary wherever you are in the world. So I'm going to focus today definitely on North America. So despite the accent, despite being based just 80 miles west of London, very much a US perspective on everything that we're doing. The information I'm going to share with you comes from just some of the 230 members that make up CASME. Some of the logos are there. You may even be a CASME member joining. And if you are, great to have you with us. It gives you the credibility. These are large organizations that contribute discussion and information, all sharing about the way they run their category. But the most important point is that we don't have any sponsors, suppliers, or consultants impacting anything. So from now, all I'm going to share with you has actually come from procurement professionals. And from a credibility point of view, I think that is just so important because you need to know, where does this information come from? What I'm going to share with you is what procurement professionals are sharing and telling us at the moment, how they are managing the category. And it's important to start with stakeholder engagement because it's a difficult category. It's a challenging one because of the stakeholders are by their very nature different to many other business functions that we work with. They've got their own language, they've got their own way of doing things. And procurement that wants to be successful has got to align to that and has got to really demonstrate that actually you've got something to add. You can add value to the process. So when we've asked our members, look, what do you need to do when it comes to stakeholder engagement? Some of the findings, some of the responses were all about really understanding the marketplace and suppliers or the agencies. I said it's different terminology. You've got to get the right word. You've got to use the right phrases. I think marketing of all categories is very much relationship based. I think that comes loud and clear. People buy from people. So don't forget that. I think that is a fundamental sort of factor that really does come to play with agencies. And if you're working with your stakeholders that are in marketing, and let's face it, they are prone to a greater churn, a greater turnover than probably the procurement team ever sees. It's important that anyone new to the business gets how procurement can actually support marketing. And so one suggestion is very much almost have a marketing or sales deck yourself to be able to talk through to a new marketing professional, to let them know that you've got insight, you understand the market, you understand the agencies, the suppliers, and that you actually can add a lot of value to the process. Procurement can't be that function that's hated. But in practice, when you read a lot of the press, there's a sort of definitely a lot of frustration with procurement. And so your role has got to be to get them on side, get the stakeholders to really understand. And it is all about that communications. You've got to make sure that you really do understand what marketing's trying to achieve. And I know this probably sounds pretty obvious, but until you know and get aligned to the marketing function, it's going to be an uphill battle. So the message definitely is agree the outcomes, agree what is really needed by the marketing team. And of course, as you do support and help with projects, it is critical to get that feedback from the marketing practitioners to understand whether what you've done in terms of the support that you've given really has helped. So I know when we've had conversations, we've discussed some of the challenges of working with marketing, and it comes down to communication, the importance of changing perceptions of procurement, demonstrating you really can add value, collaboration, achieving that cultural alignment, and supporting them in their decision-making, recognizing there's an awful lot of politics and challenges that you need to overcome. It's not going to be quick, but nevertheless, getting those stakeholders on board is absolutely critical and very important. And I know I'm laboring the point, but it's the area that most companies struggle with. It's that initial engagement. And also because there is a tendency for marketing to change their people very quickly. How many times do you feel that you're banging your head against the brick wall, that you're starting again, you're having to repeat that communication and engagement process, having just done the same with the individual that then has left after a year? It is frustrating, but nevertheless, it needs to be done. So just listing some of the priorities that also have been mentioned, sort of demonstrating the expertise and understanding of marketing terminology. You can soon get into it, but you've got to stick and do it. You can't sort of say, oh yeah, we've got to speak the right language and then talk about tenders and talking about suppliers. You've got to really focus and talk about the pitches and the agencies. We've said about understanding the requirements, understanding their priorities. So much of marketing is around that collaborative relationship that you really need that approach to get that on board. So there's no quick answer. So I'm afraid if you're hoping that you got the quick answer from me today, procurement is saying to us there is no single way to completely get stakeholders on board quickly. It does take time. It takes those coffee machine conversations. It really does have to demonstrate that procurement can add value and understand what marketing is really trying to achieve. So on that, let's get a view from the audience. Great to have 40 people on the call today. Let's get your approach. So let's get this going. Oh, thank you, Kathy. A poll. Let's get this your view, and you can answer more than one. So we want to know, what are you doing to engage with stakeholders? And what we've got here are the results from polling that we have done that really sort of looks and gives the most popular options. And you can click more than one. So do you want to include a sales deck as part of the marketeer's introduction? Can you conduct regular stakeholder meetings, attend team meetings, provide regular communications, maybe a newsletter, probably online rather than in paper? The location, being located with marketing, if you're there permanently or when you're in the same office, attending supplier meetings with the stakeholders, ensuring senior procurement and marketing executive engagement is in place, conducting training sessions. Wow, this is a good one. If you really know your staff, you can train them, which is helpful, providing market insights and agency insights, and also getting that feedback by asking them to secure procurement performance. So quite a number of good practices. You could tick them all if you're doing them all, but what do you think? How do you find in your organization it's easiest to engage with your stakeholders? Now, you can see that, oh yes, people still responding. We're up to 72 people. 72% have now responded. Just give it a few more seconds and then we'll just see. But as I said, if you were hoping for the answer, sorry to disappoint, but it just shows if it was that straightforward, we wouldn't need to spend all this time sort of discussing the challenge of stakeholder engagement. Kathy, let's end the poll there and share the results with everyone. Now, as you could type in more than one response, the percentages don't work. Let's look at the length of the bars. Conducting regular stakeholder meetings and attending supplier meetings with stakeholders. So whether you're initiating it or whether marketing is initiating it, those are the two. And then also attend team meetings. So very much the sort of collaboration, the working, it's proving there is no instant fix, but you've got to invest time. You've got to have those conversations. And that seems to be the winning formula. Let's stop sharing those results and let me share with you the CASME results, and actually incredibly similar. So it just shows when you've got a large number, and this was from polling that we did with around 150 category managers in North America and in Europe, and we asked them this same polling question, and in fact probably even more, saying here, look, conducting those stakeholder meetings and having meetings with stakeholders. It's interesting, the newsletter's just not popular at all, is it? At 12%. I think the location or being with marketing. If we were having this conversation pre-pandemic, I'm sure that would be a lot higher. You'd all want to be co-located. Now, with the video conferencing that you can do, it doesn't really matter, but you've got to engage. You've got to have those opportunities for discussion, and therefore you've got to share some value. It just shows the importance of building those relationships. And one suggestion for the training that's mentioned there is, of course, if you can offer negotiation training, that's going to appeal to many people. So that was a tip that we heard from a number of people, saying that, look, it really is good to offer something up front, even to those that are pretty much against wanting to involve procurement. Let's move on, looking at the scope of work and requirements. And again, what these slides show is the statements, the feedback from across the CASME membership as to how procurement is working with marketing. It's important you've got this information to share. And we know the best source is from the agencies themselves. And what we're seeing, I think, and have seen over the last probably 5 years now, is a greater willingness for agencies to work with procurement. They may not like it to begin with. And again, there's a bit of a sales job there to demonstrate that you are contributing. You will be a decision maker within the process. But it's important that you can learn from them and maybe sell that as a way to sort of provide support to your marketing teams, being that person able to communicate and be the bridge between the agency and your stakeholders. It can be difficult to get information. And when it comes to spend information, well, we all know what a nightmare that can be. Many companies use many agencies. They can be wrongly coded. It can be difficult to actually do that spend analysis. But if you can, then that's some major value that you've got to offer the stakeholders. So again, that was on the list. Get that information, talk to your colleagues about where the money is actually going, and they'll be interested in that. It's also recognized that the trade press within marketing is very strong, and there are ways to get daily emails or weekly updates without having to pay for the subscription for the actual trade press itself. That can be quite expensive, certainly if you're looking at some of the magazines. That definitely is a very worthwhile and an easy fix to have. Recommendation is that you understand where marketing want to invest, where they want to spend their money, and slowly start to get engaged in that conversation. Ultimately, we're talking about KPIs, and we'll cover that in a while, but having those shared KPIs, if you're mature enough that you can actually have defined KPIs that impact goals for both procurement and marketing, then that definitely is seen as incredibly good practice. We know many companies have got standardized templates for going out to the market, and they can be useful, but the recommendation is try and get a marketing specific one, because we're back to that terminology. We're back to that really making sure that you're understanding marketing rather than just trying to shoehorn in a standard document that's really geared up for buying sort of pens, paper, or anything else that you buy. So that's definitely some recommendations there. When we look at sourcing strategy, it's important that your strategy does align with what marketing are trying to achieve. We've already said, don't underestimate getting the trade information. Don't underestimate having conversations with marketing procurement. But I think ultimately, if you're developing a strategy, you need to have marketing sign off on it. They've got to have an understanding enough that they say, yeah, we want that support. We want you to actually develop the contracts with marketing, and don't try and do it in isolation. And apologies if that sounds pretty obvious, but we're talking here, people have been sharing from the mistakes they've made, because you've got to get it right. It's very different, and recognize that one size does not fit all. Typically, you'll be working with different agencies, different sizes of agencies, and some of those will be more suspicious of procurement than others. So responding differently, reacting differently is all part of demonstrating that you really can add value. So this is what we're seeing is the actual sourcing strategy that many companies are going for, specifically for the marketing category. We've spoken about different data sources. This global, local, regional, it's all up in the air. Now, depending on your approach, you may have global agencies, but you may also have smaller agencies that work. So there's no single solution there. I think there's a lot of debate as to what extent agencies should be global, whether it's better to go for one of the large players that really have got different agencies under the umbrella. That's for your marketing to decide. I think the message is, if it's global, then it may not necessarily be easier to sort. What we also know is some of those local agencies that have got a typical better understanding of culture and requirements in specific countries can actually be much more helpful than the global players. You can tell all this inputs come from procurement, and as I stressed at the start, no input from suppliers at all. Getting the updated strategy is something that you really should consider on a regular basis. Typically, marketing is so dynamic that it does need to change on a very regular sort of basis. Let's share with you some specifics about the pitch process. Quick drink. Now, we deliberately want to talk about the pitch process rather than tendering. It's got to be fit for purpose. And by that, I mean it's got to be aligned specifically for what marketing require. I think the message also is you've got to be consistent and treat agencies equal, and make sure that they're given the same information, the same brief. And I say that because, of course, these agencies will try and get additional information from your marketing colleagues. And I think one of the values procurement can bring is actually demonstrating that you are able to then create that level playing field, so that the agencies know that they really shouldn't go to marketing. They need to be provided with that consistent information so that everyone is treated equally. Another message is you've got to allow time. This isn't like buying a commodity or by buying any other service. Agencies will need time to evaluate what they're able to propose and need time to formulate a response and then present that back to you. And if you're trying to force it through in a very short period of time, mainly because you may be last minute in working, then that's putting a lot of pressure on the agencies, and that's not really a good thing. So again, procurement can add value by setting the milestones, setting out what needs to be done, and helping to make sure that timetable and plan is being kept to. So be considerate. Think through the level of work the agency needs to do in order to respond to your request. Now, I think unlike many procurement activities, the use of workshops in terms of getting together, meeting with the agencies and assessing that all-important chemistry is absolutely critical. And again, know from examples that where that can't happen, there is that frustration and suspicion coming from the agencies. So having workshops, however you may want to structure them, is very very important. So there are definitely different ways of doing things. The recommendation is that what you're putting out, the brief, should all be about the business problem, not the solution. You don't say what you want, you say what need you would like addressed. And I think the wording, the ability to influence your marketing team so that you really do invite that innovation and creativity is going to give you greater level of respect. There's a lot of conversation about the fact that this is quite an expensive process to do, and it's becoming better practice. More companies are saying, look, we're going to recognize that to do these pitches, to participate in these workshops, it's going to cost money. And so paying a nominal fee, and the figure that we've been talking about is 5,000, whether that's dollars, euros, or pounds, it's demonstrating you're taking it seriously. You're taking the interests and the workload that the agency's got to put in, you're really taking that on board. So again, consider that as an option to really help get your agencies on side. Then, and by the way, you could perhaps ask for that as a credit if they're then successful in getting the pitch. So there are different mechanisms around that. But in principle, not expecting free work from the agencies is going to do procurement a big tick in the box, whereas marketing tend to push their luck and want that sort of information provided, oblivious to the fact that it costs money. Then procurement can be involved within the assessment process. And this is where you can be sort of good cop, bad cop. Procurement can be all about understanding the weightings and understanding and putting in place an evaluation process to try and make it very objective. And that evaluation may be around the actual cost savings, dare I say that, in marketing. I know it's often not liked, but those weightings can also feature around delivery mechanism or the chemistry. And for those agencies that are not successful, time should be given to give them that feedback. Again, you could say that's really obvious. Of course it should be done. But the experience is that actually in practice, you run out of time or the criticism isn't that constructive. Procurement overseeing the process is really able to add a lot of value in terms of this perspective. Kathy, time for the second poll, and I want to get your views on the key benefits of conducting a more formalized sort of pitch process. And here you could again answer multiple options here, but what we've got is the values that we're seeing is about reviewing the marketplace and any changes. It actually helps put pressure on your incumbent agency, researching and meeting new agencies that perhaps were previously unknown, ensuring that fair process, obtaining better strategic proposals, working to an agreed process and timescale, so that's understood, improving procurement's understanding of agencies and the people involved with them, providing a better choice of agency partner for the business and its brands, delivering cost savings and delivering added value. So again, this is the list that CASME members have said that they see why talking about doing a more formalized pitch is a value and also helps get procurement involved. So again, give you just a bit of time to respond to that and get your view. And we can compare that in a second to how that compares with some of the CASME members. Arguably, they're all pretty good, so it'd be unhelpful if you tick them all. But nevertheless, I hope that's a bit of a checklist or prompt for some ideas if you're not doing them already. Just stalling for time. I can see people are still responding. Whilst you're doing no, let me conclude this, otherwise I'll lose my flow and sequence. So thank you for responding. I say we've got 40 of us on the call today, so great to have you here. I think that will do. Thank you for your responses. Let's share those. Again, the percentages don't work. Let's look at the length of the bar. And if I'm looking at it correctly, yeah, we've got 3 that are all of equal. Ensuring that fair process, delivering cost savings, delivering added value. We wouldn't be procurement if we didn't add in the cost savings, but we probably don't want to use that phrase to marketing. But we could talk about the value, and those are all the really long bars. And in fairness, you've all responded to all of them to a reasonable extent. So that just shows you all of these are really useful techniques of really saying to marketing, yeah, we should do a pitch process for this reason, rather than just staying with your incumbent or taking another approach. Back to that stakeholder engagement. We don't want new marketing people coming in, immediately going to their agency because they've been friends for life. That's just really where procurement needs to move away from that type of behavior. Thank you, Kathy. Let's stop sharing the poll, and let me share with you the responses when CASME did the same. And you can see here very similar sort of responses. The opportunity to review the marketplace, ensuring there's a fair system of treating agencies equally. Actually, poor response in terms of the time scale, but nevertheless, I think that is one that marketing would appreciate. And also 49% saying, yeah, putting that pressure on the incumbent. There's nothing like demonstrating that you need to add a bit of competition to it. So even if it's unlikely that you want to change, then it's a good way to do it. But again, we've said about the investment, the time, so you only want to do that if it really does make sense to do. That's where you need the conversation with your procurement teams. If we look at agency models and the ways of having contracts and working with agencies, well, there are an awful lot of them. I think that's the point. Tina Fegent is very well known in marketing procurement. She does a lot of our roundtable conversations and facilitation. And she said there's definitely more than 20 different ways of working with agencies on different models, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So it does get very complex. I think it's right to get the right model. And actually, just as a guide, would you believe it? There's a document that's about 10 years out of date, but by the UK's Institute of Practitioners in Advertising, the IPA. They've got the IPA remuneration guide. And even though it's quite dated, the models, the principles behind it are still being talked about and recommended. You'd have thought they'd update it, even just so they could put a new year on it. If you're not familiar with all the options, then certainly recommend it. Just put in IPA remuneration guide into a search engine and you'll go straight to that PDF, and it will summarize the majority of those 20 different options. Then you need to work out what is most appropriate for your organization. I think we're recognizing, though, that there are so many variables that go into the mix as to what model is most suitable for your organization. But equally, the recommendation is don't be afraid to ask the agency. What do they recommend? You've got to be mindful of the response there, just to make sure that they're not just trying to do something that's in their favor. But if you've got that relationship in place, then it almost makes sense to have that as a conversation, maybe a three-way conversation between the agency or marketeers and also procurement. The conversation as to whether you should have a preferred supplier list or a single source is a complex one, and certainly not one that we're going to get into in this sort of short time. There are different views, and I think, if anything, the trend is going to having that blended mix, recognizing that some of the smaller agencies have got an awful lot they can add and add value to the business. Now, we know many of these smaller agencies then get bought, if I could teeth him, get bought by the larger organizations. So it's a constant churn of businesses. That really is, again, a conversation that you should have with your marketing as to which is most suitable for your organization. Oh, sorry, jump there. In terms of the commercials and then going into a contract, well, we've spoken about remuneration costs. More and more people are moving to new methods rather than retainers. So going away from just having a monthly retainer and having it much more based on project fees. That's a general trend, and also towards outcome-based work. And as we do more and more that's digital, then that becomes easier to actually put in place. Benchmarking is important, but not easy to get that ideal comparison. And that's where the pitch process really does come in. So again, that's probably the only answer to really get a feel for what is the cost likely to be. And similarly with performance-based bonuses, that's becoming more popular as some of these other fee models come into play. Again, it's not as easy just to say this is what it should be, but being receptive to performance-based models and procurement working with marketing to assess what the agencies are offering, I think is certainly a good thing. Contract terms, the feedback that we hear from so many procurement professionals is it can be really challenging to get legal involved. So the more sort of pre-planning, the more sort of standard template of contract terms that are applicable to marketing agencies, if you can have those in place, it becomes much easier. Otherwise, there's danger that the time to make agreement, and we all know how quickly everything needs to be done, it can be very frustrating. So certainly that working with legal on agency contracts is highlighted as a significant frustration, and therefore trying to work around it by having something pre-planned is definitely the recommendation that we're hearing from marketing. In terms of performance, and again, I know I'm going through quite a rapid rate here. These slides will be shared with you so you can look at them sort of later. Performance management is critical and is growing in importance, arguably easier to do as more does become digital. I think the fundamentals are procurement needs to be involved in chairing the regular, probably quarterly meetings with agencies. And part of that meeting should not only be looking at performance, but reviewing and assessing the scope of work. One of the complaints that we've heard from procurement is marketing can go off at a tangent. That scope of work can creep enormously from what was first put together in the original pitch. So you've got an area or a responsibility to guide your stakeholder in making sure that that scope of work is maintained and therefore budgets are also met. So the view is, yeah, do your reviews of suppliers probably 3 to 6 months. Some organizations can manage that externally and bring a specialist in to do those reviews. And depending on the value of the contract and your appetite for spending money to do that review, it obviously can be viable. But equally, don't underestimate. Procurement's telling us we can do an awful lot of this ourselves. It just depends on the value of contracts and what you are trying to achieve. We asked our members, what KPIs should you be having in place for marketing services? So as it is a marketing presentation, I thought, yeah, let's have a really colorful chart to get this across to you today. And it is a bit complex. I'm just going to draw out that the dark green are those that are mandated KPIs used with every contract. The light green are those used with the majority of contracts, and then all the rest are less important. So it's the dark green and the light green. Apologies for anyone that's colorblind, but it's that's on the far left of this this chart. So these are just general KPIs that CASME members have responded to say, look, this is what we want included when we're doing a pitch and we're then doing an agreement with the agencies. They're at high level, but equally you can then customize each of those headings to meet your specific requirements. And it just shows you the range of KPIs that should be incorporated into the agreement. My last slide is looking at the future, looking at technology and trends. So we've been talking an awful lot about this because there's a lot of change. The rate of change is significant. The marketing technology is developing at a very crazy level. So we've got a growth of systems. We've got marketing tools specifically coming to the market to really, that's bad choice of words, isn't it? Marketing specific tools becoming available to really help manage some of the contracts. We know that more companies are having a review and split in terms of what should go out to an agency and what actually could be done by an in-house team. And I always think it's quite ironic, that whole make or buy decision. Procurement is perfectly well suited to contribute to that evaluation. Let's face it, even those of us that studied procurement many, many years ago, we always covered that make or buy analysis. And it's still as valid today as it was all those years ago. Working out what is the advantage, maybe those routine tasks, maybe it's part of a subset of certain categories that are managed in-house, and an understanding of what that saving is, that efficiency is, again, something that procurement can contribute to. It wouldn't be a presentation without talking about sustainability. It's becoming more and more important, even in marketing contracts, and should be incorporated and is becoming more involved as organizations want to assess their scope 3 emissions, understand the impacts of agencies in terms of sustainability and CO2. And then finally, linked with that, you've got that whole diversity and inclusion, the whole D&I. It's easier in North America, so hand that to you. You've got the ability to identify which agencies are ticking the diversity box. Outside of North America, it's a nightmare because those agencies just don't self-identify. It's just not a thing. It's not, there's no directory, there's no easy way to identify, but this is where it's going. There is definitely a trend to understand what can be done to help you meet some of your other business objectives. Final word on the marketing technology. That is definitely the future. And what companies are saying to us they want to achieve by this is starting with getting accurate analytics and data so that you can analyze what you're doing and how you're doing it. Increase the visibility of marketing services that are being bought, maximize the company's revenue by that speed to market. You can measure the impact of marketing campaigns on company sales, profitability, optimize digital media marketing engagement through certain specialists, and then also develop partnerships with social media influencers that really where you want to get out to that audience beyond just the basic digital media. So there's a lot going on, a lot of change, But I think you've got to have the basics in place first. I think that's the message. That relationship, the ability to have the engagement with stakeholders so that you can then start to influence and get involved with the agencies. I'm going to stop sharing. That is what procurement has been telling us that they are doing as far as marketing is concerned. So interested to get your views, either in the chat or I could see the Q&A box. Mike, you've asked a question there. Just let's go straight to that one. Elaborate how to assess chemistry. I don't think you can. I think by definition, we talk about chemistry in marketing. There's a lot of mystique. There's a lot of unknown, but in terms of actually identifying, it's all about that feeling. It's a really, really strange one. It doesn't happen across any other aspect of procurement, but your marketing colleagues will know. They'll know, is this the agency that they want to work with? But as yet, I've not come across procurement being able to say, yeah, we've got a way to actually measure that level of chemistry. If anyone's got the answer to that, please put it in the chat. But we've spoken about it because it is such an area of mystique, but not really something that we've actually been able to put any data or even any statements around. It's all about that feeling that the stakeholders have as to whether the agency actually understands what you're trying to achieve. And so much of that is connected with the culture, which does make it quite complicated. I hope that's been of interest. It's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Remember, everything I shared came from procurement, and this is what they have been doing. All that data is within the last 2 to 3 months, so it's very current. There are pressures for many organizations due to cost savings, but with marketing, we still don't talk about that. We'll just talk about outcomes and projects and the benefits that can be delivered, even if the budget does get trimmed a little bit. But arguably, if you've got those basics in place, procurement's in a very strong position to actually help marketing get more for its dollars. So I think there it's definitely something that, even though we're in times of cost pressure, arguably you could say it makes it easier, and then you'll be able to add a bit more value.
Looks like we have
Kathy,
a couple of comments coming in.
More questions?
Yeah, we have a couple comments coming in. Let me just read the first one. It sounds very similar to acquiring other complex services, hard to quantify, but it is related to the attitude, communication style, and sense of rapport, of understanding with key members of the supplier team.
Yeah, I think Anthony's got it completely spot on there. So that's why procurement needs to make sure you're in those conversations. So by doing some of the things that we've been talking about, you're more likely to get an invite, and therefore you'll be able to influence and support this very complex category, and also high spend category for many organizations. So where you can add value, you really do want to.
And we have another comment from Mike. I suppose the takeaway is for procurement to be respectful of the chemistry between the agency and marketing.
You know what? I think that is the perfect word, respectful. Not use it as an excuse to let marketing do what they like, but actually respect that chemistry, the way of working with the supplier is different to any other category, and where that communication and where that feeling and wanting to work with the agency is very much in place. So yeah, being respectful, acknowledging it, not being dismissive of it, I think definitely is going to get you more likely to get you to join those conversations and be listened to.
Yeah, that's all I see in the chat right now. But I do want to thank everybody for joining us today, and especially you, Graham. And Graham is going to be sharing the slides with me. So yes, once I receive those, then I will send everything out to everybody in a follow-up email, especially with the recording as well from today. So I want to thank you again for bringing this important topic to our ISM community and to all of our guests joining us today. Graham will be back next month. April 20th is the date, and he'll be speaking on strategic procurement. Okay.
I'm looking forward to that one. You know what? That's my favorite topic because it really encompasses everything that we do. So yeah, please come along to that. Is it a similar time? I haven't looked at my
similar
my
time. I'm
Similar
not
time.
sure what the time zone is going to be for you at that time.
Yeah,
'cause
we'll
I
worry
know-
about that. It's in my diary. So yeah, looking forward to it. And again, that will be sharing with you what CASME members have been telling us that they have been doing. So again, it's procurement sharing with you. So looking forward to sharing that in April. And I think we've got plans for other ones, haven't we, later this year?
We do. I think we have to refine some of our topics, but we'll get that out to you. I know he's coming back in April, and then I think in June, and then I'm not sure after that.
Yes, gosh, yeah,
Yeah,
you'll be sick to death of me then.
We have a very busy calendar, everyone. So
I see all the promotion that you do. Yeah, it must be the most active chapter of ISM. It's great to see all the different videos, the different content that you do, and it's great to support procurement. So
it's great.
Yes,
it's
thank you,
great.
Kathy.
Yeah, we're actually, our chapter is very fortunate because we have a lot of partners that partner with us on our webinar series. So that's how we're able to get this out to so many people. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you can, tune in tomorrow. The topic is going to be data-driven supply chain. So I hope you can join us tomorrow. But I will be sending out information a little later today. Thank you all again, and have a great week.
Great. Thank you all. Goodbye.